and the local and area news scene, the city of Maquoketa, nearly 170 years old, suffered its worst fire in its history today. 4 downtown buildings have been destroyed by fire. They are, from north to south on South Main Street, the Sue's Hallmark Building, the Breitbach Floor Covering Building, the Jackson County Home Furnishings Building, and the building on the corner that was to be the location of a new Pickle Barrow sub-sandwich restaurant. And one other building has been extensively damaged and its status uncertain at this time, that being the Main Street Plaza building. This one-story building, built about 4 years ago, was the home of the Smiles on Main Dental Clinic, the Brian Onan CPA office, the Area Substance Abuse office, and the Beltone Hearing Aid office. Maquoketa firemen in 10 below zero weather started battling the blaze just after 2 o'clock this morning. They called in other fire departments, and before the day was over, nearly 20 fire departments in eastern Iowa and western Illinois came to Maquoketa with men, trucks, and equipment. Most departments brought a tanker truck with them because Maquoketa's water system was unable to keep up with firemen's hoses. Tanker trucks lined up at the Maquoketa River canoe access at the north edge of Maquoketa to be filled with river water, and that water then taken to the downtown area and put into a large holding tank. From this holding tank, water was pumped over the 4 buildings, the burning buildings. Maquoketa's aerial ladder truck and 2 others brought in poured water onto the buildings below. This went on throughout the day. By late this afternoon, the fire was under control, but firemen are staying throughout the night to make sure that the fire will not erupt again overnight. Equipment was brought in to give lighting for the evening operations. Also brought in late this afternoon was the equipment to knock in the buildings so they would not collapse onto the sidewalk and the street below. Electricity was off in Maquoketa for about 4 hours on North Main Street. That's why KMAQ did not get on the air at the usual time this morning. KMAQ AM and FM went on the air when power was restored shortly after 9:30 this morning. The Hearst Hotel, the Voy Theater, and other buildings to the south of the burning buildings did not have electricity today. The Voy Theater did not open today and is not open this evening, but hopefully will be open for matinee and evening shows tomorrow. The Per Exactly Bar electricity has also not been restored, and that business was closed and will be closed tonight. One Iowa fire marshal arrived in Maquoketa this morning to begin routine investigation of the fire. The Iowa Fire Marshal mobile office and 2 additional fire marshals arrived in Maquoketa this afternoon. All 3 will continue their investigation tomorrow to determine how and where the fire started. Local fire officials today speculated that the fire started in either the upstairs area of the furniture store or the floor store. When firemen arrived shortly after 2 o'clock this morning, flames were coming from the roofs of those 2 buildings. When daylight arrived, smoke from the 2 buildings could be seen as far away as DeWitt. When the word got out around Maquoketa about the fire, help for firefighters, especially food, started to arrive. The Maquoketa Community Center was designated as the warm-up facility for firemen, and food and hot drinks were available there. A Maquoketa school bus was parked downtown and kept running for firemen to use for warming up. The Maquoketa Main Street Cafe was open to firefighters on the west side of the burning buildings, and the J&R liquor store was open for firemen to use for warming up on the east side of the burning buildings. At both locations, food and hot drinks were served, and a clothes dryer was put into operation at both locations, powered by a generator, and those dryers were used to dry gloves, caps, and so forth. At the Main Street Cafe, someone brought in a big box of gloves for those who needed some. The Gateway chapter of the American Red Cross arrived and helped with caring for firemen and a few people that were living in apartments downtown and could not stay in those apartments for lack of heat. The Red Cross reported a generous amount of food was donated and at one time called KMAQ to say no more food was necessary. Sue Wilkie, owner of Sue's Hallmark store, came down from her home in Dubuque. She told KMAQ News Director Sherry Melville that she opened the Hallmark store in 1980 and bought it in 1985. She said in the late 80s, during the time Maquoketa had a Main Street program, the building was renovated. She said the three-story building was only the third building in Maquoketa to be put on the National Registry of Historic Places. Wilkie said the building had the name D.H. Anderson on the soffit way up on the top of the building. That name fell to the ground around mid-morning today. At one time, that building's third floor was used by the Knights of Pythias, and there was a ballroom on the third floor. For many years, the Sokol and Sokol Law Office was on the second floor of that building. The old Pastime Theater was where the dental building is now. The Floor Care building for many years was a hardware store in Maquoketa before the Bright Box bought it. The Jackson County Home Furnishings Furniture Store for many years was used for two popular downtown business places, the Ben Franklin Store and the J.C. Penney Store. The corner building was for many years the Ringlip Hardware Store and later the Kendall Menswear Store. A press conference was called for at 1 o'clock this afternoon, and several TV stations were there. The fire was the lead story for radio, TV, and newspapers today, and will receive more coverage, of course, tomorrow. Mayor Meserly and City Manager Brian Wagner answered many of the questions asked by the media at the press conference. Other department heads were there also to answer questions. No dollar estimate of the loss today was given, but the loss is expected to be in the millions. The Chamber of Commerce this past year, along with the City Council, started making plans on how to enhance the downtown area and fill empty storefronts. Now the committee formed will have an even bigger job. Mayor Meserly at the press conference said Maquoketa will rebuild the downtown area. There were no serious injuries during the fire today. A couple firemen fell on the ice and were treated at the hospital. Another fireman was taken to the hospital for possible smoke inhalation. Law enforcement agencies blocked all streets leading to the downtown area. Onlookers had to park some distance away and walk to the area of the burning buildings. Tomorrow, hundreds of cars will be cruising the area to get a look at the burned out buildings. You can see a lot of photos taken today by KMAQ and also by David Voy. Those can be seen on the KMAQ website. Go to www.kmaq.com and click on the daily report. Today, a busy day for firemen, a cold day, a sad day for Maquoketa, a day that'll be remembered for decades. 2008 was set out to be the firemen's special year in Maquoketa. The new fire station is to open in the summer of 2008, and the State Firemen's Convention will be in Maquoketa this September. Who would have believed the special year for firemen would begin in January with the biggest fire in the history of the city? Another side note, the Maquoketa Volunteer Fire Department's annual banquet was to have been held tonight at Brock's Hall in Maquoketa. A new date will be set for it. Maquoketa suffered a major blow today, but Maquoketa will get up before the count of 10. Dennis Voy reporting for KMAQ News.